Hi everyone, Psych here. Today I'm going to talk about hoarding, and I think I'm going to divide it up into two sections. One, I'll just kind of talk about what it is, descriptions, and then the second segment will be on treatment. Okay. As always, this is for informational purposes only. Go ahead and do your due diligence about hoarding. Maybe I've made some errors. Go ahead and see if you can find out if I have. So, hoarding is now listed as a disorder in DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the 5th edition. There was a reference to hoarding in DSM-4, the text revision, but now it's actually a disorder. I've taken information from the book called Stuff, Compulsive Hoarding and the Meaning of Things. It's from Randy Frost and Gail Stikiti, if I'm saying that correctly. That's from 2010. As well as getting information from the APA, DSM-5, other sources. So I'm not going to go over all the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for hoarding, but what really defines hoarding in my mind is the persistent difficulty discarding or parting with possessions regardless of their actual value. And then typically the individuals with hoarding disorder display excessive acquisition. Before I go on, I just want to make note that at times I might say hoarder as opposed to an individual with hoarding disorder. Sometimes I just default to that just because it's easier to say hoarder, although technically it's kind of like implied. Okay, just some interesting points. Sentimentalizing objects. This is when you give emotional significance to objects because of their association with an important person or event, and that's not unusual. I have an old bike, my first 10-speed road bike that I got when I was 14 years old that my parents gave me. I still have that, after 50 years. So there's a lot of sentimental value in that particular object. Okay, so we all do that to some degree. The difference is that individuals with a hoarding disorder attach intense emotional meaning to so many of their possessions, and sometimes even to trash. Okay, so typically, using an object reinforces one's desire to keep it. Okay, if I use a blender in the kitchen all the time, I'm more likely to want to keep that particular object. If I never use that blender and it's stashed away somewhere, in the cupboard somewhere in the corner, and haven't used it for years, well, maybe I'm less likely to want to hold on to that particular object. Now, but people with a hoarding disorder, the reinforcement pattern of using an object doesn't seem to be with the usefulness of the object, but with the meaning that it holds. That's the most, or one of the most important things if you have a hoarding disorder. Okay, and some hoarders actually suffer from completeness, meaning they find it difficult to separate things from each other. So, for example, if you get a letter in the mail, and it's an important letter, you hold on to it. Well, sometimes a hoarder will hold on to the letter and have to hold on to the envelope because there's some sense of they go together. Okay. Here's another thing that's related more to a sense of self. This is almost kind of like I could do a talk on object relations theory on this particular tidbit here. Sometimes the thinking is, if I throw too much away, there'll be nothing left of me. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that you've got your sense of self enmeshed with that particular object. Okay, so there's some sort of identity with regard to that object. Now, sometimes individuals with a hoarding disorder, they'll give little thought to the cost of keeping things, or even to the uh, ramifications of keeping things. Like, there could be health issues if you're continually hoarding trash and things like that. Some people hoard animals. It could be a pretty hefty cost of holding on to a lot of animals. If you've got 30 cats, it can be pretty costly. And then sometimes it's difficult for them to actually even think of the benefits of getting rid of things. Besides just being able to maybe navigate throughout your room, your house a little bit easier. Sometimes it just makes things a little bit easier for your family members. If you're a person with a hoarding disorder that lives with a family that has to kind of deal with all the accumulation of objects. Now, the interest in the utility of objects is common among hoarders, and this, what I mean is whether or not they might need it in the future. I talked earlier about, well, they really kind of sentimentalize, the object. Well, they can just kind of think, well, I just might need it, even though maybe 10 years have passed. There's still the idea that I might need it. Now, the interesting caveat in my mind, I'm not sure if this has been studied or not, but I would think that if for some reason you use it after 10 years, that's just going to reinforce strongly the fact that, yeah, I better hold on to these things. 10 years passed and I used it. Okay. Now, some hoarders will worry about wasting an item. They're into, I shouldn't waste things, waste not, want not sort of scenario. But even if the item is useless and broken and unrepairable, but it's still, I shouldn't waste things. Now, the flip side to the pleasure that individuals with hoarding disorder derive from acquiring things is not merely the pain of discarding those things, it's the avoidance of the pain or any negative emotion, emotional experience at all. So let me check my notes here. So the feelings of safety, identity, and opportunity drive the effort to avoid that psychic pain. So saving allows hoarders to avoid the distress of being without their cherished possessions and all the significant connotations that those possessions have. Now, in one study, individuals with a hoarding disorder were extremely sensitive to even small amounts of anxiety. So you can understand why it would be real difficult to let go of an item if doing so stirs up so much anxiety in you. So the avoidance of anxiety and negative emotions is real common. So again, if you have that hoarding disorder, you want to avoid the experience of loss. These, even if it's trash, it still can be conceived of an experience of loss if you're getting rid of it. And again, avoiding distress is a key feature in the development and maintenance of hoarding. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here, and then I will come back with a part 2 that's going to really talk more about treatment. Okay, so I'll be back in a little bit.